Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on the front page of Nigerian newspapers. And I begin with this Nigeria newspaper. And the major story here says, strike is over. A screaming headline there, strike is over. NLC suspends industrial action after meeting with federal government. National Security Advisor Ribadu confirms arrest of Imo governor's aide over attack on Ajeru. That's the president of the NLC. And Oshomole says no one can arrest democracy. Reacting to the suspended strike, Adams Oshomole is reacting there. Now, to other stories here. Customs in Senate claims ignorance of $3.2 billion modernization project details. Tinubu opens NG conference seeks cooperation to stimulate economy for foreign investment. Saudi authorities justifies deportation of Nigerians. They said that some demands weren't met there by those Nigerians who were meant to come to the country. So appellate court dismisses Labour Party PDP's appeal, affirms Sanwo-Olu's victory. And Nigeria's inflation rate jumps to 27.33% in October. The National Bureau of Statistics is saying that. We move quickly now to the front page of the First News newspaper. The major story is still talking about the suspended strike. NLC TUC suspend strike, direct workers to resume as Labour Congress gives 6 conditions for resolving dispute. And then we've arrested suspect behind NLC president's attack. NSA is speaking, invites Labour leaders for talks. And that talk led to the suspension of the strike. The Lorenzo Italy donates 21st century e-learning softwares through local partner White Cloud to Polytechnics. Nigerian rapper Oladips dies at 28. A really sad one there. 4 killed. Ab's driver loses control, rams into truck in Ogun. Hyle was kidnapped after leaving Asorok. A journalist is recounting his ordeal. Why we deported 177 Nigerians from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. All right. Inflation hits 27.3 as beverage, food prices, others rise. One-party dictatorship remark, you can't offer credible opposition, APC replies Atiku. Appeal court affirms Sanwo-Olu's re-election as Lagos governor. It's wrong to label all Nigerians corrupt. The ICPC is reacting there. And then we move to the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. After Ribadu-led truce, Labour suspends nationwide strike. Senate summons emergency meeting, backs Ajeru on Imo campaign. Now, Mba announces 25,000 naira cash awards to Enugu workers. Tinubu to editors, our discussions promoting economic growth stability in a cautions on negative reportage. Amoka warns against breaking nation's fabrics with breaking news. Customs not privy to $3.2 billion modernization project details. The CG is reacting. Right, Nigeria's inflation rate rises to 27.33% on rise in food prices. At the top corner, we have APC to Atiku concentrate on repairing comatose PDP, leave us alone. World Bank disburses $299.9 million to Nigeria for palliatives. Deported Nigerians did fulfill entry conditions, says Saudi government. Appeal court upholds Sanwo-Olu's victory, reserves judgment in Nasarawa. To the Salient Times, NLC TUC suspend nationwide strike. Imo elders at Ajeru meet over NLC leaders' rift with state government. Details of federal government's meeting with NLC TUC leadership revealed. And another story, I have lost count on the number of women. Okay, that's a story by an actor there. Husband kills his 26-year-old wife by stabbing her 41 times in the neck with a screwdriver. And we all fight our battle silently. Singer Praise reacts to Oladipo's death. Some of the stories you find on the front page of the Salient Times. We move now to the Nigerian Tribune. After meeting with NSA as a national security advisor, Labour suspends strike. Federal government regrets attack on NLC president, says investigation in progress, arrests made. An AU lecturer slums dies in his office. Another sad one there. A $6 billion partnership with AFCTA to transform trade across Africa. 2 killed, 1,000 houses burnt as fire engulfs IDP camp in Borno. 2 IDPs killed in this incident and 1,000 houses burnt as fire engulfs an IDP camp in Borno. And it was said that the fire began at about 6 a.m. and lasted for an hour before it was brought under control by men of the fire service. Humanitarian support have been put in place to support victims of this fire incident. Now, Minority Leader, PDP senators settle for North Central. One-party state, PDP APC bicker. New Rivers CP, others arrest of notorious cultists to Baba, other criminals. Inflation rate jumps to 27.33% as food cost rises by 31.52%. All right, you find all of these stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. And to the Voice of Liberty now, NLC TUC suspend nationwide strike. Nigeria's inflation rate rises to 27.3% in October. The National Bureau of Statistics speaking. We conducted free, fair, credible election in Kogi. INEC chair is reacting. Strike, Emefiele's trial on criminal charges stall. I inherited serious liabilities from Buhari. President Tinubu is speaking. Ibrahim.
Right. Leadership is the first newspaper with me with the scribbling headline, relief as Labour leaders suspend indefinite strike. Cite intervention by National Security Advisor to monitor situation. Students lament grounding of varsities, suspension of exams. One party and merger. PDP MUM, Labour Party undecided as APC, SDP Islam Atiku. One party stroke merger. PDP MUM, Labour Party undecided as APC, SDP Islam Atiku. Visa revocation. Why we denied 177 Nigerians entry Saudi Arabia. Appeal court affirms Sanwo-Olu's re-election. You see that on page 10. 2 children die. 1,113 houses razed in Borno IDP's camp. That's on page 6. SEC to reduce 190 billion naira unclaimed dividends with new portal. Page 22. And above the masthead, you have entrenched democracy in Nigeria. Tinubu tells editors. And 30,000 naira minimum wage no longer acceptable. That's according to Abdulsalami Abubakar. That's on page 12. That's it for the leadership newspaper. Next is the Daily Trust. After 2 children killed as fire razes 1,113 houses at Borno IDP camp. After grounding the FCT states for 2 days, Labour suspends strike. Israel wants to turn Gaza unlivable city. That's Palestinian envoy. Why we deported Nigerian passengers, Saudi authorities. Then inflation hits 27.3% as costs of food, others rise. On the bottom strip, Nigeria loses 1.3 trillion naira on waivers, concessions, customs. Senate wants Port Harcourt, Maiduguri rail upgraded to standard gauge. Minority leadership, PDP senators settle for North Central. That's about it for the Daily Trust newspaper. Next is the Nation newspaper. Reforms come with pains but inevitable, says federal government. And the writer reads, there will be transparency in budgeting expenditure. President, job creation, a priority. Saudi government, 177 Nigerians came with irregular visas. We did no wrong, says Air Peace. Labour calls off strike after talks with NSA ministers. Suspects in assault on Ajaero arrested. And above the name, before the nameplate, over the banner headline, appeal court affirms Sanwo-Olu's victory. And then Navy stops UAE bound sideways. That's it. And then the next one on the bottom strip, UK Supreme Court rules government's Rwanda asylum policy unlawful. And above the masthead, what Shaibu run for governor. Government's efforts okay to halt soaring inflation. Rate rises to 27.33%. The Senate moves to create Federal Data Bank. And former Finance Minister Onolapo Shuleye dies at 90. That's about it. Moving on to Nigerian News Direct. Nigeria's inflation rate hits 27.33% as food insecurity deepens. The Food Housing Drive Headline Index increase. That's NBS. And food inflation rate skyrockets to 31.52% in October. Above the masthead, NNPCL to inaugurate $2.8 billion AKK gas pipeline by December. That's page 11. NSE arrests attackers of Ajaero as Labour lists 6 conditions to halt nationwide strike. Court of Appeal affirms election of Sanwo-Olu Hamzat. That's on page 23. Then we've got ANEC 2024. Tinubu urges editors to protect Nigeria positively to boost investments. You see all of these on the front page and the inside pages of the Nigerian News Direct. Business Day is the penultimate paper with me here. Is next. Bread, fish prices stoke inflation to 18-year high. Rates hikes, reforms bearing fruit, says CBN. That's it. Oil firms pay less penalty for gas flare or gas flared. Then you see that on page 30. An Airpeace Saudi saga sparks calls for equal treatment. And consumer goods firms stay afloat as earnings slump. That's about it for the Business Day newspaper. And the last but not least is Daily Independent. Inflation hits 27.33%. Analysts fear food inflation may spike as Yuletide beckons. And the writers read, Naira appreciation, only way out of high inflation, Teriba, are tightening measure responsible for sharp decline. That's the Central Bank of Nigeria. Editors Conference, Tinubu pledges to promote free press. You can read that up on page 7. NIMET forecasts dust haze in next 24 hours, warns people with health issues. NIMET forecasts dust haze in next 24 hours, warns people with health issues. You see that on page 7. Customs intercepts 3.55 billion naira tramadol at MMA, nets 74.2 billion naira revenue. You see that on page 7. SEC to make capital market attractive to fintechs, youths. That's Yuguda. NLC, TUC suspend 2-day-old strike. NSC assures of arresting more culprits who attacked Ajaero and ignore private matter narrative. Strike is protest against culture of violence, impunity. That's according to the NLC. And strike grounds Lagos seaports. On the bottom strip, why we deported 177 Nigerians from Jeddah by Saudi embassy. Why we deported 177 Nigerians from Jeddah by Saudi embassy. That's on page 6. And above the nameplate, Nigeria sliding into totalitarianism, anarchy. PDP raises the alarm. Nigeria sliding into totalitarianism, anarchy. PDP raises the alarm. And last but not least is Lagos Goba poll. Appeal court upholds Sanwo-Olu Hamzat's victory. Lagos Goba poll. Appeal court upholds Sanwo-Olu's Hamzat's victory. And Governor Deputy Hill Judiciary recommit to Greater Lagos agenda. That's about it for the newspapers this morning that we have for review.
Right. Of course, the organized labor suspending a strike dominating the papers this morning. But there was a story that caught my eye or caught my attention that has to do with 2 children killed at the IDP camp. You mentioned it earlier. And 1,000 houses burnt when a fire swept through the camp in Borno. 2 of the children there at the IDP camp. One can only wonder how painful, how the situation of things, of persons who are not even settled appropriately, right, now going through this kind of situation where they are having a place they have decided, they called home, not because they wanted, being raised by fire. And 2 of them dying in the process. The fire was said to have gone on for about an hour before the men of the fire service came to quell that. And although it is said that there's some humanitarian response to this now, it's quite disheartening, really. Very
disheartening. These are people that are seeking respite, they're seeking shelter, sanctuary on the IDP camp. It's always very important that those who are supervising them, those who are keeping watch over them should always orientate them with how they deal with fire. We know the issue of wildfires, the way it rages in places like Australia, the European continent and all other places. So it's very important that they educate them on how to deal with fire and how to always keep themselves, always maintain safety measures on themselves. So what led to this fire should be well investigated, and proper care should be taken so that this kind of very sad occurrence won't have to recur again in the future. It's very sad, and our condolence to the families of the bereaved.
Right. If you look at the paper on the screen, just see some of them there who live in the IDP camps trying to recover perhaps a thing or two from the fire to see what they can regain out of that fire. Unfortunately, their shelter was razed to the ground, totally burnt, as is being depicted by that picture there. And we can only hope that they are resettled as quickly as possible. They didn't put themselves in this condition in the first place. Unfortunately, we hope the government can quickly address this matter, because it's quite depressing, and one can only imagine the state of their minds as it is, that what is there to salvage if everything that we have has been burnt, while we're trying to just put body and soul together. is burnt to the ground as it is. And like you mentioned, we can only hope that the souls of those who departed rest in peace.
That's right. It's not. This is not Gaza. This is not Israeli-Palestinian war. But I hope the government and the federal government can quickly come to their aid.
Absolutely.
Ensure that they have a reprieve.